It's the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James. We're joined today by Don Hartman. Don is a producer from New Mexico. Don, great to see you.
Glad to be here.
And we're at the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual convention in Salt Lake City. Is this your first convention for Farm Bureau?
Oh no, I've been to several of these throughout the years.
And when we say Farm Bureau, New Mexico Farm Bureau, I believe, is it first vice president? Is that your
Yes,
title?
sir. I'm first vice president of New Mexico Farm Bureau.
Tell me about your involvement in Farm Bureau. Did you just wake up one day and say, hey, I need to be in Farm Bureau? How'd you get involved?
Well, about 30-some years ago, my neighbor was actually the county president, and he recruited me to be on a local county board. And so I agreed to do so, and then as we got more involved, we were encouraged to get into YF&R, the Young Farmer and Rancher program, and so we did, and my wife and I actually were chosen as one of the National Sweet 16 winners, I guess you might say, of AFBF, the Young Farm and Rancher Awards program. We didn't make the full win, but we were honored enough to be counted in the Sweet 16. So that led to us being on the state committee for several years, and then I eventually aged out and became county president for two different hitches of 8 years apiece. So I've been county president for 16 years total, and then vice president for probably another 8, and treasurer for several years. So, you know, Farm Bureau is not new to me, and it's been part of my life almost as long as my farming career. So I've been here a long time.
I'm glad you mentioned your farming career when we get down to your operation, and you're not far from the U.S.-Mexico border, 25 miles or so?
About 26 miles off the Mexican border. So yeah, we're kind of right there close.
What will we find around your operation? Will we find maybe some cotton? Will we find some specialty crops?
Yeah, I grow some cotton, and I grow the green chili for a cannery, and then I grow fresh market onions, all colors. I grow the reds and the whites and the yellow onions, and they're marketed all over the western United States. And I grow some grain sorghum for rotation. We thrash it, and it goes to a dairy. The grain does, and then I grow some hay for some ranchers. I grow beardless wheat, and then I've also grown quite a few seedless watermelons over the last several years, but we kind of gave up on that, which I may lead you into another thing, was the COVID, which everybody knows, and the shortage of labor. So when most of your crops are hand harvested and then COVID hits and you can't get people to work, it's pretty devastating to a farmer who's highly dependent on hand labor. So as a result, we kind of went to the H2A route, which is expensive but dependable. You know, the people are hardworking, they know what they're doing, they're just good hardworking people, but there is a lot of red tape that we have to wade through to get them here, and it's very expensive because we have to provide their housing and pay a lot of their expenses. So there's a trade-off, but so far we've kind of kept doing it because we have that dependability on labor.
H2A, and obviously anytime we're talking about immigration or we're talking borders, H2A gets thrown in there, right or wrong, but there has been some work going on in Congress trying to clean up the ag worker perspective. If there were some things that Congress could do for that H2A program, maybe some improvements that could be made to make it better for you, better for H2A workers, what would that be?
Well, we live in a world of technology. You know, I have a cell phone, so I have a computer basically at my fingertips. And with the H2A program, many of the applications are still submitted by snail mail. You would think that the federal government could do things electronically, you know, from one agency to the other, and yet we're still having to depend on the Postal Service to deliver much of these important documents that the government requires us to fill out. So it takes a long time. You know, when I start looking at getting people for the end of July, for August and September and October, I'm working on filling out those applications for H2A in April. So that tells you, you know, we have to have 3-4 months leeway before we can finally get our people. So you can't say, I need them next week. The process is too cumbersome and too long. So you know, we have applications that we have to file. We send them to San Francisco. Then San Francisco, when they okay them, they send them to Chicago. None of it's done electronically. So there are ways the government could streamline to make that a faster process, but we're still working on that.
H2A, obviously a vital part of your business. There's something else that you're involved in, though. Outstanding Farmers of America. And you're not just involved, you're president.
Yes,
Tell us
sir.
About the organization.
Outstanding Farmers of America is one of the oldest young farmer recognition programs in the country. It was started back in the 1950s by the USJCs, and it was to recognize up-and-coming young farmers. And their criteria was they had to be under 40 years old. And then they submit, they're nominated by a county ag agent, or anyone can go online and download the application and nominate someone for this awards program, and they fill out some information. They're judged, 1, on their financials, and 2 is their community service, and 3 is their sustainability and conservation practices. And then we take our applications and we score them. We have a panel of several judges, and they're scored. And then we select the top 10, and they are invited to come to our annual Congress, wherever we're at. And then we have an final in-person interview. And from those 10, we narrow it down to 4 national winners. So it's an awesome program. We're broke up into 6 regions around the United States. So we move our Congress to a different region every year. This year we're in Bellingham, Washington, which is north of Seattle. And next year we'll be in Des Moines, Iowa. So I love the program. I've made so many friends, and they're like family, that there's probably not a state I can't drive to and pick up the phone and say, hey, you want to have supper? Or, hey, I'm broke down, can you come help me? So we're really, really proud to be part of that organization. My wife and I were nominated way back in 2006 by our county extension agent, and he called me and wanted me to fill out this application, and I kept putting him off because I wasn't interested, and I didn't think I had a chance in the world at being selected for anything like this. I was just a young, hardworking guy at the time, trying to raise a family and do the best I could, and he kept badgering me, and he finally said, if you don't fill it out, I'm going to fill it out for you and send it in. Well, I didn't want it to be secondhand news, so my wife and I sat down and filled it out, and we were selected as a finalist, and then we went on to Bettendorf, Iowa. And then it turns out that we were one of the top 4 in the country, which was humbling and amazing. And then we didn't really go back for a while, and then we had a gentleman that had been in the organization for a long time, and he called me, and I was still on a tractor, driving tractor, and he calls and says, we're just chit-chatting, and then he says, you want to go have supper? And I thought he was just joking around, being funny. I was, well, I'm going to go home here in a little bit when I get done off the tractor. And he said, no, I'm serious. Do you want to go to supper? And I said, well, yeah, I guess. Are you anywhere close? He said, yeah, I'll be at your place in 30 minutes. So the gentleman came. His name was Jerry Barnes. He just passed away 2 days ago. So he came, we went out to dinner. They were having their annual Congress in Albuquerque. And he was out recruiting help to help do grunt work to take care of the Congress. And then we met some amazing people. Back in 2006 when we won, there was a lot of, it's real nerve-wracking. You don't get time to really bond, and you feel like you're in a competition and you don't really get to know people, and you feel a little out of place. But when we went back in, I think it was 2012 in Albuquerque, we met some wonderful people. We had a good time. It was relaxed. From then on, we kept going back, and I only missed 1 year out of all these, however many it's been. And that was because there was a snowstorm and I couldn't get there. But anyway, we had a wonderful time, and that organization is very dear to me. And I encourage anyone, another cooperating partner is NRCS, the National Association of Conservation Districts, and NRCS are cooperating partners and can nominate. So it's really neat. We're doing some things as a new board of directors. We're trying to get out of the shadows and try to get in the spotlight. Deere is one of our big sponsors, and so we're trying to gain more sponsorship and grow the organization more. But yeah, it's a good deal.
And that's Outstanding Farmers of America.
There's also another acronym that goes with it, is NOYF, which is National Outstanding Young Farmers, but you can Google either one and get there. So,
and you'll also find Don's picture there as well, because he is president of the Outstanding Farmers of America, first vice president for the New Mexico Farm Bureau, producer from Luna County. It's great to see you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity to visit. I appreciate that.
We really wish you the best here in 2024 and can't wait to catch up with you next year.
Super.
Again, Don Hartman is a producer from New Mexico and joins us on today's Agribusiness Report.